Danny, before we go, I got to tell you something. Like, what's this with Donnie Laney taking shots at me on Facebook, saying that like me picking Ohio State proves that I am so anti University of Georgia. I'm the guy that picked Georgia to win the national championship once when Bart Rick was coaching, and actually they should have been in the national championship game that year. And then there was before the year they lost to Bama in Atlanta for the national championship in overtime and led at halftime. I had picked them before the season started, and no national pundit had done it because Georgia that year was actually 40-1. He says this proves how anti-UGA I am. What is he talking about?
I have no idea what Donnie's talking about on that because just like, you and I have talked before, going all the way back, you have always been a pro Georgia. You've been able to put on the Auburn, blinders there for a second and make the pick when you see Georgia's a good team. You're a fair prognosticator in that regards, as far as I'm concerned. And the fact that he's all worked up about you picking Ohio State, who again took us dog people to the brink of destruction at midnight, right? I mean, Carl Donnie and asked him, for all intents and purposes, he thought we had lost the game sitting there watching the field goal kick, so to act like Ohio State couldn't win the national championship is crazy. I mean, they're right there with it. They would if they're not your second pick or your first pick, they should be your second pick. Like, I would say Georgia, Ohio State. I mean, that would be.
I mean, Kirby said after that game a couple of years ago, they outplayed us.
Oh man,
Really. I mean, Lathan Ransom, who's still on the Ohio State team, falls and gives Georgia a free touchdown, an 80-something yard touchdown, 76-yard touchdown. And then they get the 2-point conversion. You get eight points in one play. I mean, that was a huge part of that game. But yeah, just I didn't like that because you're right. Like obviously, Auburn's favorite team in the SEC. Obviously, I love the Buckeyes and I love Memphis because of my wife working there. But when I feel like UGA's got the best team, I go with the Bulldogs. I admitted earlier I thought UGA looked better than anybody in week one. I have no problems with that. I have a lot of respect for Kirby Smart and how he coaches. I love how what he did in the game against Clemson. He didn't force the issue against Clemson in the first half. There were a couple of times where people wanted him to go for it. He played field position and backed up Clemson. He knew what he was doing.
yeah. I think he did a really good job playing the game. Like we talked about earlier, letting the game play out, letting the running backs to see who was going to be the one to be able to hit some of these holes, letting the offensive line adjust. I mean, some of those holes they started opening at the end of the game are just incredible. Really, third quarter, you go back and look at it, they really are looking good on the offensive line. So to your point, I could see why you'd pick Georgia. But you look at Ohio State with the weapons they got around them, and the only thing they really had shown in that first week was a little offensive line weakness. That comes together, right? Unless you're a total disaster, you have some kind of injury to, one of your left tackle or your center, Ohio State's going to be really good this year. And I
Yeah.
really think it's going to be, I hope we get away from them in the bracket somehow, and we don't even have to see it. That's the way I'm envisioning. I like this new playoff because it's possible you won't go up against the toughest team. Somebody catches the best team on a bad day, they knock them out for you. You didn't have that as much in the 14 playoff. You certainly didn't have it in the BCS, right? It was one-on-one. Like you said, 2018, you either win it or you're gone. And that's what happened to us against Bama. And, I think that happened last year for Michigan. Georgia taking the hit against Bama. I mean, you put us in that playoff last year, we're beating any one of those four teams. So I'm excited about this year's playoff bracket.
I got ridiculed by I got ridiculed, Danny, by a lot of people here last year when I picked Michigan to win it all before the season started. I didn't want to pick Michigan to win it all. I can't stand Michigan.
Yeah.
But I looked at what they had coming back, and I looked at the fact that Ohio State had to go there. And I'm as a Buckeye person, I'm as disappointed as anybody. And then I was really upset, when they won it. I didn't want to be right, but it wasn't like it was like anti any other school. I just felt like going into the year, Michigan had the best team. I love when Ohio State returns a Sawyer, Ibuka, Travion Henderson. Maybe he'll be healthy. They get Judkins in. Will Howard. I mean, they have got a lot. Denzel Burke. This team has Smith, the outstanding freshman wide receiver. This team has a lot of weapons, and I think I think it will end up being Georgia versus somebody, maybe Oregon. Who knows? Speculating 12 teams. We don't know how that bracket's going to,
Mm-hmm.
where the games will be or anything. So who may be hurt by then playing 3 or 4 extra games? I think Georgia will be there because they're the deepest team in the country. But I don't know who the opponent will be. I hope it's the Buckeyes because I'd like to see them have an opportunity to win a national championship. But who knows?
Look, it very well could be. And I mean, I think the way this sets up this year, it's, all you can count on is somebody. And again, same way for anybody that's not a Georgia fan, count on one of these other teams to knock out, whoever's hot at the moment. And I think that's good that the conference champions get to jump and get the first week buys on this thing. But, um, it's knowing us, we'll lose SEC championship to somebody and still make our way. I mean, that's just how we do it. Last SEC championship hat, I thought I was getting me a new one last year, but that didn't work out for me.
Before close, maybe Bubba Harrelson will buy you one to make up for that. Did he do a
Yeah.
smear campaign against you when y'all ran against each other?
I'll get Donnie Laney. I'll get him to send me one. We'll send him you can send him an Ohio State one if you want.
Have do you ever think about that, like a high school experience you had there with Bubba running a smear campaign against you?
I already told you, Bubba did, man. He went around telling all kind of bad stories behind my back. And, he would have been the president the whole way through, and he moved off to Columbus, came back and tries to, run this smear campaign on me, like, or Danny did nothing as your sophomore president after I left. I'm like, what are you gonna do, dude? Nobody even has a driver's license.
All right, man. I tell you what,
Anyway,
this has been an awesome time with you. It's always fun to
yeah,
reminisce with
oh,
you.
it's fun.
I like to humanize the situation. We've known each other so long. So proud of your successes, professional. You awesome, and I thank you so much for always being willing to come in here and do the picks on talking with Tony. As I said on last week's episode, we weren't opening with you, but because you are our TWT football expert, we would see you more than anybody as the season went on. We'll see Kevin White for sure at some point. We'll
Yep.
see John again. Stormy will be invited. That's up to him to whether or not he wants to appear, but we definitely will see you more than anyone.
You got to try to set up a panel this year for one of these weekends, where we all can get logged into this thing. That would be hilarious.
We'll do it. We'll do it. We'll absolutely do it. Danny, thanks so much for the time, and we'll see you down the road. Sound good?
Yes, sir, man. Thank you. Thanks, Jake.
Yep. For Danny Arp and for Jake Barton, I'm Tony Jones in Auburn, Alabama. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the football games this weekend. And I just have to say, welcome back, Aaron Rodgers. Please stay healthy for at least an opening night so the Jets fans have some hope because they do have an outstanding team. And this is the Falcons' year. Remember that you heard it here first. We'll see you next time right here on Talking with Tony.